Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Across the Neuro Divide. This is the podcast where myself and the amazing Tigger Pritchard. How are you, Tigger?
Hiya, how are you?
I'm good. We'll get to that in a minute. This is the base of the podcast where Tigger and I look at things from two different neurotypes. Tigger being an awesome neurodivergent individual and myself being a neurotypical. And we can talk about things and our roles and the way life gets and how it can get muddled up and how we can better be supporting each other in this muddled up, mixed up world. So Tigger, how are you? How are you this week?
I am fine. I have a new passion, which is cold brew coffee. In case people think I'm drinking whiskey, I've got to find it. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make it proper. I found cold brew coffee. I love it. You've seen some of the posts. You can put ice cream in it, ice cubes, all this kind of jazz. But I haven't yet got a cold brew glass, and that's because this isn't. I look at every time I drink out of this, I'm going, isn't right. This is a whiskey glass. This isn't right. So I'm hunting. So update on that next time. I am fine, thank you. My freelance life is getting a bit busy. I'm not very good at organising myself. And I've been away for a couple of days, a beautiful event in Wales. So I travelled from Cornwall to Wales. And I was talking about what it means to be autistic and sharing what I do with a great organisation. I travelled for a whole day, travelled up from Bodmin to the other side of Cardiff. So train journey was just after the strikes. So this time I prepared better than last time I went on a train for a long journey. I had headphones, I had noise reduction headphones, I had water, I had work to do. I downloaded, because I hadn't watched it yet, the first bit of Stranger Things, season 4.
Oh, yeah.
I could watch that and binge watch that, all of it to reduce my anxiety. I'll have to say that the journey up was really difficult. There was an upset individual on the train where the police had to board and take him off.
Oh, wow.
I know that was a bit wow. I can understand why. It was just one of those things. And there was also a lot of people traveling because there'd been the effect of the strikes last week.
Yeah.
So the trains were very busy, and of course, it's for me as a neurodivergent individual. There's smells, there's taste, there's sound, the sensory overload I have from a train journey. I love train journeys, but only if I prepare correctly.
Yeah.
So if I don't prepare correctly, train journeys can really wipe me. So though I'm going somewhere I want to go, I'm doing some work, which I love. I'm meeting great people, which is awesome. All of that takes away my spoons. Yeah. So I do as much as I can to refill those spoons.
So clarifying that, everyone who doesn't understand that, if you watch this, you don't understand the spoons thing. It's commonly used in neurodivergent circles as an understanding of if you like your energy or your resources that you have available. So you've got a pile of spoons in your drawer, and for every bit of energy or every bit of exertion or whatever it is that you require, be that physical, mental, or emotional, it takes away a spoon. And eventually the drawer will run out of spoons and you've got to kind of wash them up, replenish them, and keep the drawer full. So when you hear this talk about spoons, that's what it's relating to. It's the energy and the personal resources that you're giving towards something that take away from your available energy and resources. So if you like, it's how fast your battery's draining and when you need to recharge is another good way to look at it.
There are a couple of good ones out there. There are people who use the spoon theory, there's fork theory, there's the rechargeable battery on the phone, which I like that one a lot as well. I mean, people that follow me, you'll see it on my Instagram posts and so on. I often talk about, spoons. And one thing that really helps me a lot is I'm aware of how to replenish my spoons. So I like I said, I planned for the journey away. I planned for the how many spoons it would take away from me and what I have to do to replenish those spoons so that it doesn't completely wear me out over a period of time. Yeah. So spoon theory, that all really works. I prefer spoons. But I like the phone battery one. I like that a lot. Yeah, it runs. I like
the phone battery. Also, I did I think I read it up somewhere. I've done one to myself on guitars.
Yeah,
you can have different inputs, different types of guitars. All essentially the same thing, but they have produce a different result depending on what you're doing. But I saw a great one, which was sort of Android versus iOS as neurodivergent versus neurotypical.
Yeah,
because you've got the whole thing of basically they do the same thing. They essentially function the same way. They're both very similar to use. They've just got a different operating system behind them. So it could work on, Windows or Mac OS. It could work on, all those different things. But the idea there that it's just a different way of processing the same information and often relaying it back in the same way, but it's just operating on a different level. I really like those little analogies.
I like them. I mean, we've got a little tangent here, but it's okay. We love them. I like those. An awful lot of youngsters I work with in families I work with, they use the phone one. I came across that, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I really like it because that idea of the battery going down is something that youngsters can relate to, and the battery going into red, and therefore you've got to do something to recharge the battery. For me, being an older individual, not that old, it's the spoons bit. And I know what works for me. You know, Blue Tack works for me. My stims work for me. Routines work for me. The same breakfast works for me. I have a kind of a list of spoons that are good for me that I share with other people so they know as well why I'm doing something, but also maybe to help me work towards something. So where were we? Journey, went away, loved it. Train Journey Complex. Now, bear with me here. I've done this on podcasts before and YouTubes and so on. Is the minute I get to a hotel, I am normally quite low on spoons. I can't go out straight away. Sometimes if I've gone up with a group of people, I'm on my own. I don't want to see anybody at all. So I haven't got enough battery left in my charge, or I haven't got enough spoons. One of the things that really instantly is really good when I go away that fills my spoons is having a bath. Having a bath that is as hot as possible. So this sounds really funny. I am sensory overloaded by the time I get to a hotel. Great hotel. Now, bear with me here. You might have to put a trigger warning in. But I normally get in the hotel. So literally, I think I got to just the other side of Cardiff for about 4:30. By 4:45, I was clothless. The bath was running. I was getting it as hot as I could. I had some music on the phone, and I was straight in the bath. It was boiling hot, which isn't a good thing. For me, it just works. I'm very careful. Obviously, the temperatures are modulated in hotels and so on. That is a great way for me for recharging. It gives me quite a few spoons. By the time I get to the hotel, I'm headachy. I don't want to talk to people. There are occasions when really I just want to be, situationally mute, and that's it. I don't, to cut my communication completely. It is an awesome moment in time when you know what you need in order to replenish your spoons or to recharge your battery or forks, or whichever one works for you. It's something we really, as neurodivergent individuals, it's really good to have that self-knowledge. I sometimes try and book rooms specifically and say, if you go to Bath, please, I really need a bath, or a bath in my world. And it's just superb. It is so superb. And I can't go out sometimes until I've had that. I went across London a couple of months ago, sorry, and I couldn't get a room with a bath. And once I arrived at a hotel room, I spent the whole evening there. I had a hot shower, which it's not as good as a bath, and I hadn't replenished enough spoons, and I thought I can't go out. Whereas the other night, a couple of nights ago, I went out and I'd had my evening meal and did some work on a laptop in a restaurant, and I was fine. And it's for me, it's the bath that does that. But we were talking about the fact that I then go and train. I spend a whole day training with a great bunch of people. But there's an element of masking going on. There's an element of, again, spoons are reduced. Then there's the journey all the way back, which normally of an evening is really complex too. It was last night I binge watched most of Stranger Things. A long journey from where I was and got back here. But today we were talking. Today and tomorrow have to be very low days for me. Because I go through sometimes, and I'm away again at the end of the week, I go through what I call like a social hangover, a social burnout.
That's a good way to describe it. I like that, social hangover.
There's some great stuff on the internet, some stuff I've shared over the years as well. It's kind of like, I love it. I love meeting people. I teach, I train. It's my job, do my freelance stuff, and I love it. But I know I pay a price for it because I'm masking to a certain degree. I'm it's not my normal routines. I'm not doing my gym first thing in the morning, stuff like that. And the spoons are going. So we were talking early on about today and tomorrow, very low days for me in terms of output, because I'm shattered. I'm absolutely shattered. And I've got to do, we were going to do this a bit earlier. And I said, can we do it a little bit later? Because I just wanted to run up and downtown, buy some fruit, get some fresh air, get some kind of sunlight in Bodmin. And just kind of replenish a bit more batteries before I did this, because though, energizing it is always lush to speak to incredible you. We've got to meet. Again, this takes, as a neurodivergent individual, this will take spoons out of me. I get a very quiet afternoon plan. So social burnout or social hangover, that's another term as well. It's when an individual has used up spoons, batteries low, forks, whichever one works for you, and I need time then to just get those back and to make sure, because if you do this too often, if you don't do that personal care, which is easier said than done sometimes. You need to be aware of your own needs and what works for you. Then it leads to, more complex issues long term than that. So I've learned over the years. Initially, I didn't know, but I've learned over the years what I need in order to recharge my spoons, to get my spoons back, recharge my battery. And therefore now I try and be more sensitive to my needs and plan my week around it if I can. Sometimes I can't.
I think it's so important. I actually think it's something that needs to be understood in the wider world. It's something I think a lot of neurodivergent individuals like yourself, I know, who understand the spoons, and they're very aware of what they need to replenish their spoons, to keep themselves ticking over and to keep themselves energized and charged as they need to be. And I think a lot of people in the wider world don't realize that so much because that social anxiety, the social hangover, the social sensory overload that can occur in the world is more enhanced for neurodivergent individuals in a way.
There's the masking that goes on and everything. I think what is interesting, and this is what I was talking about yesterday, actually, one of my things at the moment is that I've learned as somebody in his mid-30s, that's not going to work, is it? No. It's never going to work, not with a hairstyle like this. As somebody of my age, I've had to relearn, rethink, and understand my needs as a neurodivergent individual. And I have made lists on my phone. I love doing the list bit of making a list of, what works for me. And then I share it with people close to me. So they know why I like to sit in a chair and rock, or they know why I need to spend ages sometimes having a coffee, or I need to talk about cold brew, which is my newest thing, for ages. And I get so excited. I know what replenishes my spoons, recharges my battery. But I know what masking is. I know what stimming is. I know what, spoon theory is, and so on. So many younger neurodivergent individuals I meet, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, nobody's telling them about this stuff. Nobody is telling them, and they are not aware of what happens or what is masking. They're not aware of why they might do particular things and it's stimming. They might not be aware that their spoons are low. And to help individuals understand that is so, so, so important. Because as a neurodivergent individual, I love going out that front door. But the minute I go out that front door, I interact, you start losing spoons.
Yeah,
my battery starts getting low, and I've got to take care of myself. But so many younger individuals, you get diagnosed and identified, bits of paper. On a lot of those bits of paper, it doesn't say this is masking, this is spoon theory. This is what sensory overload is like, and this is what you can do to look after yourself. And that's something that does desperately need to change. We've gone off on a tangent again. I'm sorry.
But this is all good. I think it's great. I agree, and I think it's something that I often talk to other carers and people and it's easy to get yourself put down that list so far because you're putting everything else above you. And that leads to the similar thing of burnout. You're losing your energy, you're losing your spirit because it's constantly being put out.
Carers also, it's again, that whole environment is so important.
It's this thing that can feel very selfish. And I think it might be something that it's a neurotypical thing of that awareness of, not focusing on self enough is sort of, it just comes with part and parcel of, especially being a carer, everything goes before you. But I've had to learn and force myself to learn, and it's something I pass on a lot, is that you are important as a person. But how can you, if you bring it back to the phone, your phone is only going to operate effectively at a certain percentage level. They reckon it's between 50 and 80%. You got your that's your prime stages for a phone to operate at best with its battery life. And you start using your apps, you start using those things that start draining that battery more, and it can stop doing its normal function. So great, here's a good example. Got an Apple Watch. I'm using it as a watch.
Sorry, it's a new Apple Watch and it looks lush. I have it does look really lush. Show that lovely Apple Watch of yours. Go on.
But the thing is, if I'm using this just to tell time, that's great. It'll last for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Probably get a couple of days out of it. If I start using the other apps on there, it starts to drain the battery. So its primary function is being reduced because we're putting all these other things in place. So if I'm checking the weather, if I'm checking my movement, if I'm checking whatever, that's all increasing the battery drain. So I'm going to get closer to my need to recharge a lot faster. And I think as carers, we do that a lot of the time. We're putting so many other things before which are taking that focus. And if I want my watch to function at its best, then I need to balance what I'm doing with so I get as much energy for it for the day. We need to do the same. We need to be able to even if it's 5 minutes, just going outside and whatever your poison is, if you're a smoker or I vape, I puff, or just being outside in nature, maybe it's just sitting down and watching Judge Judy for half an hour. I don't know. Whatever it takes to get you that time to just top those batteries up.
It is interesting by universe fate or whatever. I am that Android Windows guy. You are that Apple. That's really weird, isn't it? Because I was thinking, I've got a Samsung watch. Yeah, it does my heartbeat and all the rest of it. But yeah, that is quite funny. That's just a serendipity at work there, so to speak. But when you've as a carer with your NT head on, if I can call it that, you've just been in hospital.
I have. I had to have an operation last week, actually, 2 weeks ago now, and it was. So I thankfully had some pre-warning for it. I knew it. So I've had a hernia a long time back, and they just had to do some checks on it because it was pretty bad when they did fix it. But it meant that I was going to be potentially out for 3 nights in hospital. There was, proper, still got 6 gaping wounds in my stomach at the moment, talking of trigger warnings. So it's a fairly serious operation. And as luck would have it, I was in overnight, and they sent me home the next day because he said, "Doctor, you're up and around, you're walking, you had a shower this morning, you can go home." But potentially I could be there for a couple of nights. And as a carer, it takes on a complexity that probably a lot of people don't realize, because when I'm out of the picture, there's a lot of things that won't be able to get done. So we've had to, we're very fortunate, we've got a very close friend who is great, knows the kids really well and understands my daughter in particular, also understands my wife's needs. And she was on sort of standby because for the first time, this is the first time something like this has happened where I've been away and my mother-in-law couldn't come down. And that's normally a great thing because the mother-in-law, she knows obviously her daughter, she knows what my wife needs, and she understands Sienna, and so the whole thing kind of works. But it was complicated for me by the fact that, so last September, I did NADEX. So if you don't know what NADEX is a disability conference running in Birmingham next week. So I'll be there again next week with the Grumpy Gits. If you haven't seen the Grumpy Gits, go check it out. But yeah, last September we were at NADEX, and it triggered some stuff with my daughter. It tied in with the onset of puberty. In fact, I've just done an episode talking about this particular event. But the reality was that my being away was a big part of the trigger mechanism for my daughter to really dip emotionally and mental health wise. It led to some real serious issues at the time. So I was, of course, hyper aware of that as well. My presence not being around, it's a massive shift in the routines. And of course, being neurodivergent the way my daughter is, routines are essential. She knows, she gets up, she knows what time she's got to be up, she knows what time she's going to get her clothes on, she knows what time the taxi's coming. She has this whole routine in the morning, and she's in control of it, which is a big PDA trait. She knows what she's doing, she knows what she's, and allowing her to make her own lunch and stuff, so that gives her that control. It's all really good, but if that routine gets messed up, it really affects her. So this was really in my mind, because last night we ended up, she was hospitalized for 4 days because her mental health went so bad. And we had some real issues with, potentially self-harm and all that kind of stuff, and danger to others because of the way she was acting this out. The way she was processing it was just really unhealthy. And all this really, it was playing on my mind. So it really stumped me. And it was like, well, I've got to make sure that we don't end up in this situation. So being able to reach out to some people and get some support. And what I really feel for is there's so many people I know who don't have those readily available supports. Family may not understand neurodivergence. They may not understand autism. They may not understand disability. And so finding someone who can come in. So one of the things that I've got really strongly behind me, to the point that I've become an ambassador for them, is Devon Carers. Now, there are carers charities all over the UK, and go and check them out, because if you're a carer, you can get emergency support plans in place through your carers charity. What happens is I have in my wallet a card that says I'm a carer, And if if I was in an accident, if something was to happen to me, check my wallet, that card's there. And they then know to contact Devon carers who can put a care plan in place to make sure that everybody that I care for is being supported. And it's a very simple thing to do. And I really highly recommend, if you're a carer, if you're responsible for anyone beyond, general parenting, which is essential as well, but in that way where it's got the complications of disability or neurodivergence, then it's a really, really smart thing to do. So get on it and do it. Go check out, just Google your local area and Carers Charity, and you'll probably come up with several options. Carers UK are probably the biggest across the UK, but there are also many areas. So there are, like, as I say, in Devon here, we have Devon Carers. So they've been a fantastic support to me, to the point that I wanted to become an ambassador for them, because I think it's really important stuff.
But asking, yeah, and look, now with my head on, thinking about the fact that you have, you're a parent, you're a husband, you have an incredibly important role also in making sure that the equilibrium of those awesome people that you love is as safe and as stable as possible. So you must have gone through, I know you put a lot in place, saw the stuff and so on, but you must have felt a huge amount of, I don't know what term to use, pressure or anxiety, because almost through no fault of your own, you had to leave your family and you had to go away and stay somewhere for which could have been more than one night. How do you feel? Anxious, guilty, frightened, scared? What emotions are going through your head?
It was that anxiety is definitely there. And it's funny because I can't relate to what my wife and my daughter experience with anxiety, because they suffer anxiety, if you like. I don't know, it's probably a better way to put that, but they do. The anxiety really affects their lives, and it's always present. I mean, this is going to bring my religious side out a bit here as well, but it was one of those sort of serendipitous things. I'm not here to push what I believe on anybody. That's not what I do. But I was really worried the night before I was going, and I was really concerned to the point that I was actually wondering whether I should put it off, because my daughter had been going through a fair bit, and she was not dealing with life particularly well, and it was affecting my wife in her mental health and all that kind of stuff. I shot a prayer up, which is just what I do. Again, I'm not trying to push that on it. This is just what I find helps me, and I have my beliefs. As I did that, I literally came out. I'd just been settling the kids, and it was as they were dropping off to sleep that I was going through this and this worry. And at the door, complete strangers who'd heard about what was happening through a friend of ours, who'd talked to somebody else, who'd talked to these people, live locally, turned up on the door and just said, "Oh, we just heard what's happening. So if you need anything, we're here to help as well." And it was just one of those moments of, wow, that's astonishing, But it is that kind of thing. And it did create anxiety, and it's one of those things that I can use that in some ways. I can use that to understand what my wife and my daughter go through 24/7, where for me it was the lead up to a fairly significant event. For them, it's 24/7, and you get that thing, and I know it, where I get it at night sometimes, where you start worrying about something, and you know what? It's something at night. It's so much harder to switch it off. You're going to sleep, and then you go, that bill's got to come out on Wednesday. Oh shit, have we got enough money to cover that? And your brain starts ticking over, and you can't get it out of there, to the point that I will usually, I'm going to take an hour, sit up, watch something just to clear my head or whatever.
I don't know, I've mentioned this before, but it took my partner quite a long time to get used to this. I have to go to sleep listening to something, and it's either the news or radio drama, 1950s, 60s radio drama, usually science fiction or something like that. Otherwise, my mind goes into overdrive because I'm not stimulated by anything else, and all my usual routines and things that I do have stopped. And I will, if I don't do that, I've panicked before and I haven't got my headphones. I've run around a house going, where am I? I've even purchased headphones when I've been away because I thought I won't sleep unless I'm listening to something. My mind won't turn off. I won't sleep. Look, I want to go back to one thing I was interested about, because I talked about my burnout. My social hangover, my burnout, whatever term you want to use, my recharging my spoons and so on, but also as a as a carers burnout. I mean, that's the thing you said there. I mean, you have to look after yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You're an incredibly important, awesome human being. And yet there you were earlier on saying, I almost thought about, shall I put this off?
It's interesting because burnout's something that affects a lot of carers.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. Actually, interesting. I mean, we're coming up to it again because we've got the summer holidays coming up. Now, I find personally the summer holidays the hardest because they're long. It's not just a couple of weeks and you've got 6 weeks, you've got the expense of that 6 weeks because you're constantly having to find things to do to keep minds occupied and energy going out. And there's nothing's free anymore. You can go to a park, but even now you bloody ice cream sellers and stuff and the kids, doesn't matter what, and you can't go to a park every day, can you? That's just going to be, it just doesn't matter. It's an expensive time. But what I really found is that by the end of the summer holidays every year, I'm really close to burnout, if not at that point, and I've experienced it. And last year, and I could sense it coming before the holidays, and I actually twigged, this is what's happening. And my brain's almost going, this is about to happen, and you're going to really, really struggle because it's intense. You're there 24/7. You can't. Part of being parents to an autistic kid, a PDA, is that you can't let your guard drop very easily. It's not like you can go, just go and chill out in your room for a while. 10 minutes of silence is very suspicious in my house. And that's when you usually go up to find that the walls have been redecorated with lipstick or, that kind of stuff. So you're constantly on guard. It's constantly taking those spoons, if you want to think about that. Going back to the phone analogy, rather than having a couple of apps running at a time, you suddenly got 5 or 6 apps running at a time because your video monitoring's on and all this stuff's straining battery and you're constantly using it. So you do run out of energy that much more quickly. And it hit me. So what I actually did at the beginning of, just before the beginning of the last summer holidays, knowing this was coming and sensing my own mood, was that I went to my doctor and just said, look, this is what's historically happened. I'm actually quite concerned because it seems to be my brain's going now. And they put me on just a very mild antidepressant. But it was perfect because it was just enough that it got me through. So understanding the science behind it really helps. If you're low on vitamin C, you go and take vitamin C pills and you top up your body. With these and this isn't the case with all mental health medications and antidepressants, but the antidepressant that I was on, it basically, there's serotonin in your brain. There's this, basically your synapses are linked by chemicals. And when you're in that point where you're close to burnout, that chemical isn't being produced in the right amount. It's struggling. If you like, it's like a diabetic with insulin. You have to inject because the insulin isn't being produced at the right levels. So you have to top it up. And that's what this did. It's basically allowing my brain to keep functioning as it needs to and keep that going. I found it really, really helpful.
One of the things I was going to ask a couple of things. One was, and this is rife in my kind of world at the moment in terms of what I do for a living, is that one of the first things I do to almost every single parent I come into contact with is, as well as putting things in place for their children, their family and so on, is I say to them, do you know, I often research once I know where somebody's from, I research what local parent care groups there, and I say, do you know of this, your local parent care group?
So,
again, so many families, when their child is diagnosed or identified as autistic, etc., it would be really great as well for a lot of counties to go, and here's a list of parent care or support groups in your area. Because I know, as you know, but I know because of the great parent care groups I work with, especially the one in Cornwall, the support, the knowledge, the information, they are so, so, so important to the well-being of so many families that I have, absolutely utter respect for them. And yet a lot of the time it's another thing parents aren't told about.
The communication that's out there is really bad. It's interesting because this is something that's been coming up a fair bit lately for me with different people I've been supporting, and people don't know the support that's out there. Because I don't know if you're aware, when an autism diagnosis is delivered, at the moment you get a sheet of paper It's like, almost like the Simpsons style thing. So your child's, or your child is autistic, kind of thing, and he's got the one of the things that they give links. Oh, here's a bunch of places that you can go to for support, and what they are is these links written out on a sheet of paper that's like 600 odd characters long. No one's going to type that in because it's just too complicated.
I've got to add as well. One county sent me theirs. 4 of the links on the page were out of date, didn't exist anymore.
Oh,
and none of the links were neurodivergent led.
That's so important.
Yeah. None of the links were from because you need a mixture of good parental support and also, from my viewpoint, good knowledge for, autistic individual. And quite a few I've seen, there is no input from holistic.
You know what? It's something that I insist with. So obviously I've got my group on Facebook, and it's one of the big things that we do on there is, obviously I'm neurotypical and I'm the top admin, head admin kind of thing. But we make sure that with our moderators and our other admins that we have a blend of neurodivergent and neurotypical people, because it's a blend of neurodivergent and neurotypical within the group. And it's why I rally so hard against things like Autism Speaks and stuff like that, which is obviously a US.
Don't get me started. Don't.
That's
a whole other
can of worms.
I can feel it go. Don't. We will do another one on this. I think we have to. I don't know if we have done one already, but I tell you, no, don't get me. That let's cure autism. No, bye. Sorry, can't go there.
Not only that, it's a group entirely led by neurotypical people. There's no neurodivergent people. Their leadership at all. It is all entirely. And I got criticized for this. I got a comment on one of my previous videos that was saying, he's on his usual rant about engaging other autistic people. And it's like, well, I don't know about you. Obviously for you, for me, I can't possibly hope to understand my daughter or my wife if I'm not engaging with other people who live their existence, because I can only see my world through the eyes I'm given and their neurotypical eyes. If I want to gain an understanding and an appreciation and an empathy with what they experience day to day, I'm only going to get that from speaking to people like yourself.
Yeah, it's with any minority. The same issues are there. Exactly. If this is a neuro minority, the issues are there as well. Nothing about this without this. All of that, well, getting erased here is so true.
But you wouldn't have a racial equality group entirely run by white males, would you? That just wouldn't work.
But
why would you expect that?
There's that bit about at this moment in time, personal, professional advocates, individuals, professionals, whatever labels you want to use, that join alongside the neurodivergent community and travel that road with us are so important. Autism Speaks triggers me. I'm sorry. We're going to have to change the subject.
We'll change the subject. What we'll do is we will come back to
it's a forum.
We will do I've done a couple on this channel before with people talking about ABA therapies and stuff. But what we'll do is we will have an episode.
The attack is being torn apart as we speak.
We're gonna have to get Tigger some more spoons. If you want to hit Amazon and send some spoons his way.
Spoons, actually, as United themselves, they're really cool and they're really smooth, and they're really. I kind of like. See, there you helped me there. I really like some designers and spoons more than others. So I love buying secondhand things and stuff and older stuff and that. So I quite like an eclectic range of spoons rather than being all the same. And again, I'll have a specific spoons for, I've got my porridge spoon and I have spoon for when I do like things with coffee and so on. But anyway, thank you for that. Where were we?
What I will say is, moving on, we will put in the description links to carer support charities and to support you can find online if you are a carer. But also we'll get some, I know you've done an episode on spoons, haven't you? And you're back on the Autistic Coffee Shop.
Yeah. But we
will put a link to that in the description as well. And we'll try and put a link up here and you can see that pop up, and up here, I think. You can see that pop up and you can click on that and it'll take you through to that particular episode of the Autistic Coffee Shop that Tigger used to do. Getting all that information is so important. You matter, and I think that's the key to all this, is that prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. It's actually, how can you be your best for somebody else if you're not at your best for yourself? Tigger, as always, it has been an absolute joy.
Thank you.
inspirational talking to you. We will see you again on, obviously there'll be lots more going up on the channel in the meantime, but we'll see you on the next episode of Across the Neurodivide. In the meantime, I hope you guys are staying safe and well, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you all. Look after yourselves, take care, and be lush. I look forward to seeing you and everybody else again. And do send in questions, comments. We need them.
Add the comments. We want to hear your questions.
Yep.
We've done an episode before just based on your questions and remarks. Please do chuck them in there. That would be really good to have as well. Do like, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You'll always know when there's new content coming on. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again next time.
Bye.